Welcome to our video series introducing Google Analytics. In this video, we'll look at other features of the visitors area. Now, if we continue looking through the visitors submenu, we've previously looked through the map overlay option in detail, and as you can see, there's also new versus returning, languages, visitor trending, visitor loyalty, browser capabilities, network properties, and user defined. So let's go through these very quickly. First of all, new versus returning. If we scroll down, you can see that the information is presented in much the same way. It's different information, but presented in a very similar way. So really what we're drilling into here is the statistics for new visitors versus returning visitors. And according to these statistics, according to analytics, just under 18% are returning visitors during the time period, which is approximately 1 month. And again, there's a lot more information presented as well. Once again, total visits, average pages viewed per visit, average time on site, and again, also, you can change views. By default, it's gone to the pie chart view. If we take a look here, we get, when it's done reloading, we get the table view, and there are other views as well, just like before. So again, we're really drilling down into specific data so we can choose what's really important to us, what we really want to know about, and how we want to view information. And again, you can also sort the columns just by clicking on the top of them to sort them by ascending or descending order as you wish. And also, you can take a look at goal conversion for this particular set of data. Very interestingly, new visitor, 702 visits from new visitors, 1.85% of them converted to a sale or went through the conversion goal, which in this example is a sale. So goal conversion rate 1.85. So if the value of the goal is a $20 sale, that works out that each visitor is worth 37 cents. Returning visitor, 153 visits, the sale ratio is slightly better, 1.96%. So each returning visitor is worth 39 cents. So that's a quick look at the data offered comparing new to returning visitors. As you can see, the interface can take a bit of getting used to, but once you do get used to it, it's quite consistent. You can view the information in different ways: chart view, or rather table view, pie chart view, graph view, and so on. And you can really drill down into specific information. So what I'm trying to say is that once you're used to the interface, then it's really just a matter of understanding the terminology and what's being presented. So next in the visitors menu, languages. If we take a quick look, this may be useful, but I'd say it's probably less useful than where someone is visiting from. But of course, if you're considering translating your website, perhaps these may be really useful statistics. Effectively, what it's telling you is the default language of the computer visiting, or perhaps more specifically of the browser visiting. So, English US, English GB, Great Britain, just English, French, DE for Deutsch or German, IT for Italian, and so on. So again, even more information presented in much the same way. Now I'll click on the Visitor Trending option. And actually it brings up another submenu with a whole bunch of options: visits, absolute unique visitors, page views, average page views, time on site, and bounce rate. So here's visits, and visitor trending. Now we can look at it as a graph or chart, whichever term you prefer. Again, it's much the same information, but presented in a different way. Okay, and the other options, absolute unique visitors, page views, average page views, are all pretty predictable. Just click on them for that information presented in this way. So let's take a quick look at visitor loyalty. And okay, this little arrow here tells you that it's brought up yet another submenu. So visitor loyalty, loyalty, recency, length of visit, and depth of visit. So let's take a quick look at these. Loyalty, and you see that it presents how many times people visited as a chart. So most people visited once, 1 times, 702 visits, 82.11%. 2 times, a bit under 13%, and then it gets progressively less. You know, I guess some people may come back again and again, but as I mentioned, this is just a sales site, just a sales page. So the point is that when people visit, they either buy or leave. They may come back, but I would say that that's a real minority, as these statistics show. I would say that a lot of these 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 15, 25-time visits is just me coming back again and again to check the site. Okay, recency. Recency for return visitors means how often do they come back. So those are those statistics. Okay, length of visit, pretty self-explanatory. Depth of visit, that's how many pages people visited. It's really just a one-page website, so most people visited one page, 81%. 2 pages would be, in most cases, it would be the people who have ordered. So then they're taken from the front page, which is the sales page, to the thank you for ordering page, which would be page 2. Then page 3 would be thank you for submitting your shipping address, and that's pretty much it. So there may be a couple of odd pages which aren't really trafficked, which are being picked up in these statistics here, but obviously the main pages are here. Okay, browser capabilities. Which browser people are visiting in, what operating system they're using, for example, Windows or Mac or Linux even, browsers and OS, screen colors, that is, what depth of screen colors do they have, screen resolution, how big a screen resolution do they have, such as 800 by 600 pixels, or 1024 by 768, or other larger screen resolutions. Then Flash versions and Java support. In a lot of cases, this wouldn't be massively important, but it may be useful for understanding what the default settings are for your visitors. And so you can make sure you aren't excluding anyone, or excluding the majority, shall we say, with your website. You know you're always, if you get any clicks from visitors, you're always going to exclude someone, because there are lots of weird and wonderful computer setups out there, but as long as you design your website for the majority, you should be okay. For example, if you really want to add Java to your website, then you should probably make sure your visitors have Java support, or otherwise you might turn away a lot of them. Okay, network location. Let's take a quick look. Okay, this is basically telling you which ISP, which internet service providers, people are visiting from. So the majority are coming from Comcast, then Roadrunner LLC, and so on. Okay, now let's go on to connection speed. So connection speed, 855 visits, used 6 connection speeds. So again, this might be useful to know if you're offering a broadband content like video or audio and so on. I would say that dial-up is a real minority now. As you can see here, 32 visits out of 855. So DSL, 286, unknown, not hugely helpful, 265, cable, 251, and so on. So that pretty much covers the visitors area of Google Analytics. You can see how you can really dive into the statistics it offers to understand exactly what's going on with your website. And really, obviously, you need to start getting some traffic to your website to start getting some statistics. But then, once you start getting some feedback from visitors, and when I say get feedback from visitors, that's just a term I use to mean that you receive this feedback when people visit your site and you watch what's going on. That's feedback. And it's very important because when you watch that feedback and watch what's going on, then you respond to it. You see what your site's doing wrong and you see what your site's doing well. And obviously, you try to stay away from the mistakes more and move more and more toward what you're doing well and even improve upon it. So that's why it's so important that once you start getting traffic and start getting these figures coming in and really dive into them, and really start understanding what's happening and what you can do better. Of course, the visitors section of the menu is just one. There's also the traffic sources, content, and goals sections. Those will be covered in future videos. However, just before we move off the visitors area, I'll quickly mention, and this is more functionality that's available through basically every screen, but it's definitely worth covering now. You can export. You can see that you can export the information you're seeing to PDF or XML for Excel, CSV also for Excel, or TSV format. That way you can view this information offline. You can download it, and it makes it easier to print out and pass on to others, and so on. You can also email the information. And if you separate multiple addresses with a comma, you can add them here, and then subject and description. Then choose the format you want to send the information in, PDF, CSV, XML, TSV. So you can email it to other people directly through the interface, and you can also schedule it if you want. Here you can see weekly, send out each Monday, for example. Other options are daily, sent each morning, and monthly, quarterly. So you can choose to have whole screens sent to other members of staff, or perhaps freelancers, or just people you work with so they don't have to log in and can have information sent straight to them. Then they can keep up with exactly what's happening on the site, so that's very useful. Finally, if we go back a screen, Add to Dashboard, and it's been added. And if I go to the dashboard now, and there we go, added to the bottom right of the dashboard, there's the connection speed summary screen. And you can click to be taken straight through to that full in-depth screen. Then if you want to get rid of it, click. And if we OK, it's gone. So as you can see, Google Analytics is massively powerful. And as I mentioned already, once you get used to the interface and just the sheer quantity of data presented to you, it's worth spending a lot of time just going through it and getting familiar with what's presented. And then you won't want to see all the screens on a day-to-day basis. You'll just want to see certain screens which are particularly useful to you. Then, from time to time, when you really need to dive in, you can just go to specific areas to really drill down to find certain data.